John Callahan. I am the Director of Development for Peron Development, Peron, and I'm the former mayor of the city of Bethlehem. Well, there was a lot of uncertainty about kind of what the economic future of Bethlehem was, given the sort of unknowns related to the Bethlehem steel site. We had, literally kind of a 20% of the taxable land mass of the city and a large water and sewer user kind of just completely offline for us. And so what was going to happen with those properties and that land, it was critically important for us to get it back onto the tax rolls, put it back to productive use, and there was not a lot of in the way of a plan as to how to do that. So it was, I would characterize it as highly uncertain. Well, the first question was kind of, is gaming something that's appropriate for Bethlehem? And as I learned more about gaming and where the process that the state put in place to award these licenses, it was pretty clear to me that the Lehigh Valley, given the fact that we're the third most populous region of the state, the fastest growing area of the state, and kind of 10 miles from New Jersey, to have the opportunity for folks from New Jersey to come here and bring some of their tax dollars with it when they gamed. It was very clear to me that the Lehigh Valley was going to get a license. And so from that standpoint, it became more of less of a debate about whether the Valley or even Bethlehem should have gaming, because once gaming's here, whether it's in Allentown or another city, those problems don't know municipal borders and boundaries. Those problems are going to come to Lehigh Valley. They're going to come to the state. And so my thinking was less about whether or not we would have one, but kind of collectively as a region determining where best to put one. And then, individually for me as mayor, I had to think about where did I think the best site in Bethlehem was to host a gaming facility. So at some point there was, another operator interested in maybe putting one kind of on the outskirts of the city, kind of at the intersection of Route 412 and Route 78, and then one more interested in kind of doing something that would be centered around historic preservation and more in town. So it was a little bit more risky to do the one in town, because if it went poorly, it's not something you could kind of ignore out on the border, and the negative impacts would be kind of in the center of the community and something we'd have to deal with more directly. But I think, in retrospect, it made all the sense in the world to have it kind of in town, and where you could have all the other positive impacts of gaming and the sort of ancillary economic impact and investment that came with it. I wanted to be clear to this community that we were strong and that we had a plan in place with or without a casino to get kind of where we were going. Now, we would probably get there in a different way, and maybe it would take us longer to get there. But this was not us clinging to the hopes of a casino sort of saving the city, or the future of the city. We're a good community, and we were going to be a strong community with or without a casino. The flip side of that is I needed Bethlehem also and the people here to have enough faith in who we were as a community, that if we didn't get it, we were going to be fine, and if we get it, we're going to be fine. And in essence, we're not going to let this casino define who we are. We're not going to become just a casino town. So and that we have more going on, and we had to have faith that we could do both. And so and I didn't want, because if the sense was that all of our fortunes were tied to the success or failure of this application, and then we didn't get it, that doesn't set yourself up very well for the future. So I wanted people to understand that we were doing this from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. And I think it was important for the overall psyche of the community, and it happened to be true. So I think there was so much hyperbole or kind of just overemphasis on the negative impacts that casinos were going to have, and it was just kind of that whole kind of a discussion about prostitution and gambling addiction and this kind of Bethlehem was going to become Sodom and Gomorrah, and then it was just kind of a lot of over the top rhetoric. And conversely, there were a lot of folks that were saying that if we just get this casino, everything's going to be great, and that wasn't true either. So it was sort of these sort of two points of view hashing it out in these meetings. And part of what my job was to I guess temper expectations on either side. It was, it wasn't going to be our savior, and it wasn't going to be the demise of Bethlehem either. It was going to be a part of the overall economic future and plan we had for the community. But there was a lot of passion around it. I get it. I'm glad there was that passion. I think it was important for us as a community to let those voices be heard, both for and against, and there needed to be a proper vetting, and so that regardless of what direction we ended up in, that those that were against, having not, once we made the decision to move forward with it, at least felt like they were heard and they weren't going to shut down and sort of go in a different direction. It was kind of like, okay, we had our chance to be heard. The decision was made by City Council and the mayor to go in a different direction, but at least we had an opportunity to voice our concerns. So now that it's coming, we're not going to disengage. We're going to stay involved, and we're going to still be involved in the community, make things happen. And I had mentioned, that because these meetings would sometimes go till 2, 3 in the morning, Allentown, which was sort of having that same dialogue or discussion, would have maybe 5 or 6 people show up in favor of it, and the meetings were over rather quickly. So there were moments when I would sort of look with some degree of envy at their situation and go, boy, we're really getting our brains beat in over here in Bethlehem, and this is really so controversial. Wouldn't it be nice to have a situation where these meetings were over 10 o'clock? And so, but ultimately, I came around to the idea and the understanding that, and it's true of gaming or any other issue in Bethlehem, is that people really do have a stake in the ground. They really do feel a part of the community in I think, a special way, and they care about it. So they're going to show up at a meeting and voice their concerns or how they feel the direction of the city should go. And so I kind of came around to the understanding and the belief that I'd much rather be the mayor of a city where 500 people show up at a meeting than 5, because that shows that people care and they've got a lot of passion about their city. Because apathy is a hard thing to overcome, and so if you start with a community that's sort of engaged and involved, and you give them an opportunity to be heard, generally good things are going to happen. There was a moment when in the course of these hearings, when my honors English teacher from 11th grade came, and I've maintained a pretty close relationship with her, since I had her in high school, and she was like the cool teacher. She was the one everyone loved to hang out with, and she got close to her students. We all kind of liked her and respected her. Real smart woman, and strong. Like, she was a rugby player. She was just very cool, right? And so she showed up, and there was a point in which where the podium was, where the speakers were speaking, and where the table I was sitting, were pretty close to one another. She kind of turned, and she was like standing above me, and she gave me like this. She pointed down at me and said, "And you, if I would have known that you were going to be supportive of a casino coming to Bethlehem, I never would have supported you." And it's for that moment, I was back in 11th grade being scolded for not having like a paper in on time. So and it made me, for a moment, second guess, because I think, boy, if she's not in favor of gaming, then maybe I need to rethink my thought on this as well. So it was a funny moment. It was something that was kind of personal. I wouldn't say funny. It was kind of a stressful moment for me. It's one I look back and it's funny now, kind of knowing, and her and I kind of laugh about it now. And she says, "I wish you wouldn't tell that story anymore, because I think in retrospect you were right to bring it here, and it's worked out pretty well." So it wasn't her best moment, but it was definitely something that made me step back for just a moment and say, is this really the right direction for the city? But I think in retrospect it was certainly the right call. So I had great faith in them being kind of the largest market cap gaming company. They'd have the resources, the wherewithal, and the vision to execute on the project in a way that they said they would. And then kind of on top of that is you know, when they came to the site for the first time, they understood it. They kind of got where we were as a community and what we were trying to achieve in terms of the design and the scale of the project. So it was kind of like, because the type of destination resorts they had built in the past, it didn't take them long to figure out how they could do something here that would incorporate well into the whole theme of steel and industry. So it wasn't something that we had to force upon them. It was something they kind of got in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, it really does mimic some of the old machine shop buildings and some of the architecture that exists there, both in the form and in the materials that they use. It's a lot of steel and glass, brick, and it kind of fits seamlessly into sort of the its environment. And that was important to me. Again, sort of trying to learn from other communities. So many of these casinos really, I said it kind of looks like a spaceship that landed from another planet. It doesn't relate to anything else around. It just sort of looks like it's literally from another world. And I didn't want that for our site, because I wanted this thing to kind of work as an integral part of the whole redevelopment of the steel site. I didn't want it to stick out that way. I wanted to have it kind of blend. But there's also, it also has to operate and function as a casino and be lively and welcoming, and something that can bring people there to have a good time. So I think we struck that right balance, and sort of the validation of that for me was the day that we opened the casino. I was kind of sitting out front, and there's a traffic island out in front of the casino, and I was kind of watching the flow of the traffic, and it was kind of an important day to make sure it all went well. And I had this woman from New Jersey pull up, didn't know who I was, obviously. And I'm standing literally in front of the casino, in front of the big, giant sand sign on the crane, and she asked me, do you know where the casino is? And I literally just had to turn around and kind of go, there it is. And so to me, that was sort of a real validation that we had done, we had achieved the outcome that we had hoped for, and that she drove by it, and a $600 or $700 million investment, and didn't sort of, it looked like everything else around it. Well, I share some of that frustration with. I think the Sands even wishes they could do more at times. The Machine Shop 2 project is a massive project. The building's a third of a mile long in length, and at the time that it was built, was the largest industrial building under roof in the world. So it's not for the faint of heart. We've had a couple of attempts, with in tackling that project that have not worked out, and I know the Sands was as disappointed in that as anybody else. But at some point they're a gaming company, and they're going to make investments centered around gaming, and they expect a return on investment that gaming provides. And so some of those other kind of ancillary economic investments on the rest of the site maybe don't make a lot of sense for them, in terms of ROI. And I think what might be best in the long term is for perhaps Sands to kind of step back and let others that want to do it purely as more of a real estate investment than versus as an alternative to an investment in a casino someplace else in the world, kind of take a shot at it. And so we'll see how that pans out for the future. I think everybody wishes the project were further along, and because at some point these buildings aren't going to last forever, and you do run the risk of sort of demolition by neglect, and the time is of the essence to make those investments, because I would not want to see significant amount of demolition on any of these existing buildings, because I think we've got enough of a critical mass to sort of still keep that sense of the old plant and the history that took place there. We've allowed a fair amount of demolition to allow for new investment and infill on the site. So I think the opportunities exist, and I hope that everybody seizes those opportunities sooner than later. Well, I think what's one of Bethlehem's strengths over the course of their 275-year history is that they've been able to kind of change, but yet still keep a certain spirit and not necessarily leave everything, not leave behind what made the city special or its history, but sort of build upon it. And whether that was our colonial history, our colonial industrial history, and then the steelmaking history, the 125 years of steelmaking history in this community, that obviously brought great change to Bethlehem from a Moravian settlement to what we then became. And then then steel went away, and so it was time for us to sort of move on from that. And so, and part of the challenge in introducing gaming to Bethlehem was to let people know that you didn't have to give that up. That's still here. It's not going to change fundamentally who we are. It's just going to be, we just have to incorporate it into kind of our identity as we move forward. And so, we have a casino in Bethlehem, and some people know us that way. But those people that come to the casino also have an opportunity to get to know us, a different perspective on Bethlehem when they come to visit. And we're also known as a community that has great arts and culture as a result of Steel Stack. So, we're going to continue to evolve and change. It's been Bethlehem's strength that we have that capability. And but so it's sort of inevitable, right? I mean, if you're not capable of evolving and adapting over time, ultimately you're going to die. And so it's something that's not easy. Change is not easy for people, individuals. It's certainly not easy for a community. But we've been able to sort of digest those changes in bites that are small enough that people can tolerate them. So I'm certainly proud of the public input and the process that we followed to give everybody a chance to sort of let their voice be heard. It wasn't easy at times, but it was important for for the process to be open. I was very happy with the design of the casino and how it kind of fits into the community, and the fact that you can drive by there on any given day and almost not know that it's there, but if you drove in and saw it, there's probably 50,000 people in there, but you almost never know it. And that was by design as well. And you don't see big traffic backups or parking issues in the downtown, those types of things. So I was happy the way that the casino ultimately was executed, and that was also by design and took a lot of planning. It didn't happen by accident. But most importantly, I'm incredibly proud of Steel Stacks and the uniqueness of that development and what took place there. It's a funny, I was the first time that Music Fest, a portion of Music Fest was moved over to Steel Stacks. I was waiting in line to get a ticket to go into to go to the main stage, and in front of me was a mother and a daughter from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and they obviously didn't know who I was, and I remembered that the mom turning to her daughter and saying, "Geez, I wish we had one of these in our community, in our town," and I kind of chuckled to myself, and I said, 5 or 10 years ago, no one would have said, I wish I had the largest brownfield site in all the country in my city. And so we kind of found a way to kind of make lemonade out of lemons. And the Steel Stacks project is really about that. And it's a world-class arts and cultural campus that is unique to us. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world because the environment in which it's in doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So I'm really, really proud of that project, and I think that now lays the foundation for another wave of investment on that site, both residential and office. And so that's going to be sort of how the rest of that site is going to ultimately be redeveloped, and a big part of that's going to be the Steel Stacks campus. So if I had to really pick one in that whole process of gaming, it would be the result of sort of taking that investment and that energy of the casino and building the Steel Stacks project as a result.